One of the most intriguing fights taking place this weekend happens on Friday night at the Ultimate Fighter Redemption finale in the main event, as Michael Johnson welcomes former World Series of Fighting lightweight champion Justin Gaethje to the octagon. Obviously, Johnson is coming off a loss in his last fight when he took on Khabib Nurmagomedov on somewhat short notice at UFC 205 last November, but Michael Johnson has remained one of the best lightweights in the world, and now he's going to welcome in a very hot rising prospect in Gaethje, who comes into the UFC with a perfect 17-0 record with, I believe, 15 finishes to his credit. But this is the first time he's faced this kind of talent in his career. Gaethje is one of those guys that kind of goes balls to the wall at all times during every one of his fights. And it's going to be a very interesting matchup. They're not giving him any easy road into the lightweight division by throwing him right into the deep end by facing Michael Johnson. So, we're going to talk about this fight with the man sharing the octagon with Gaethje, Michael Johnson, as he gears up for his first fight since November, as he looks to reestablish himself as one of the best lightweights in the world, while also looking to take out one of the top prospects to join the UFC in this past year. So how is everything, man? Obviously, fight is creeping up around the corner. When I texted you, I was like, wow, this fight's actually much closer than I thought.
Yeah, I know the fight tends to creep up on you that way. It seems like forever when you sign the contract, but then you're in training camp all day, every day, and the next thing you know, the fight's around the corner. So I'm excited. I know you guys are excited. I hope Justin's excited for it.
Absolutely. So how is training going down in Florida? I know you guys had a little bit of upheaval with kind of the end of the Black Zillions, then you had obviously Henry open his new gym down there. So how is training going down there?
Training's going good, man. It's the same. We didn't miss any steps. We're just in a different place. So that's it. All the same training partners are together. All the people that need to be together are together, and we're making each other better. So just different walls, same people.
Yeah, and I've heard that the team has even added some new pieces. I heard that maybe Robbie Lawler had been down there working. I know Luke Rockhold stopped down there for a little bit. So it seems like if nothing else, you guys even added a couple, pieces here and there.
We definitely had a few guys stop by and they get some training, and mutual friends of everybody knows this business, and guys that train here and there. So it's good. It's good talent coming in and out, and we're just helping each other.
Yeah,
we're all on the same mission, and it's just helping each other progress.
Yeah. Before we get to Justin Gaethje, let me ask you, Michael, last time I talked to you was back in March because you were in Vegas. Khabib Nurmagomedov had to drop out of his fight. He couldn't make weight, had to go to the hospital. You volunteered to fight Tony Ferguson. Now, we know the fight didn't end up coming together, but give me your honest opinion. Were you bummed that didn't happen? I mean, you were ready to step in there because I know I texted you said you're absolutely trying to get it.
I was a little bummed about it. I thought that, he was this quote unquote real fighter that he talks about all the time, that he would fight anybody anywhere for no matter what. And so I just thought for sure, hey, I'm out here in Vegas, I'm willing to cut this weight, even though that's kind of a in lack of better words, kind of a bitch move. They wanted me to cut 14 pounds within like 10 hours or 8 hours or so to fight him, and I agreed to it and everything, but he still said no.
Were you surprised?
He says money's the issue, but yeah, I actually was surprised because I thought he was a guy that would fight, like he was telling everybody he would do.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, especially considering you have a win over him. That to me was like the most natural of the storylines, you know what I mean? Like I thought that kind of
that was the biggest surprise. Yeah, that was the biggest surprise. I thought for sure that he was going to jump all over it, avenging his only loss in the UFC against a guy that's taking the fight on like 8 hours notice, 10 hours notice or something like that. Yeah, I would have jumped all over that, no matter the price. He would have got paid regardless. We definitely would have got some extra money, but he decided to say no. So he's in the past. I'm looking. I was past him after he said no. So it's on to Justin right now.
Yeah. What were your thoughts when you got the call and they offered you Justin Gaethje? Like, were you familiar with him? Did you know much about him? Like, how well did you know this guy when you got the call and saying this is who you're fighting?
Yeah, I've seen Justin fight. I've helped teammates get prepared to fight Justin. So, I've always liked watching him in his fighting style. So, but it's the same. I get a call for a fight. It's the same response. Yes, we'll take it, and when's the date, and we'll see you guys there.
Yeah. I had this conversation with Rafael Assunção when he was taking on Marlon Moraes down in Brazil, earlier this month. And I said, is there a certain, when you're facing a guy who has a lot of hype around him, but we're still not quite sure how he's going to stack up to UFC talent, is that tough? Because, there's a lot of people buzzing about this guy, but he's also never faced that true UFC level of talent, so you wonder what you're getting. He said, yeah, it is tough. How do you feel about that? Because there's a lot of hype, there's a lot of buzz around Justin, but the flip side of that is he hasn't fought in the UFC. He hasn't felt those bright lights. He hasn't fought those guys that you have in your career where you would say these are legit, title contenders.
Yeah, absolutely. You always think that's going to be a factor. He's not used to the big bright lights, and the level of competition is so much different. He thinks otherwise, and I hope otherwise. I hope none of that affects him. I want the best Justin to come there and perform, but for somebody to say that those aren't going to be factors, that's just kind of idiotic if you ask me, because the matter of fact is, he hasn't been at this level. He hasn't been with the bright lights, and, he's great at what he does, but he just, he might be out of his league on this one, but I hope that's not the case, like I said.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I hear a lot of people say that, and I know it's you put on your game face, and you say you're not going to be nervous, and, it's not going to affect you, but I don't think I've talked to anybody after a fight where they didn't admit their first time in the UFC, it's just a different animal. It's just a different feeling.
Yeah, it is, of course, and, a lot of people just weren't, groomed in the UFC or brought up in the UFC the right way. They might have been thrown in the fire a little bit too quickly, and not been able to handle it. I've been in the game for 5+ years. I'm the Ultimate Fighter. I've been at this stage plenty of times, so this is just a normal day for me.
Yeah. What was your impression of Justin when you kind of came face to face with him the first time at that press conference, a couple months ago? I was at that press conference and he was very vocal, which was maybe a little surprising right out of the gate. But what was your impression, kind of coming face to face with him for the first time?
Yeah, it was kind of surprising with him, but my first expression was he's somebody that looks confused. And I don't know whether that's because he's got a goofy look on his face all the time. Or what, but he looks confused. He doesn't really know what he's getting himself into. So I think he's talking a big game, but like I said, and like you said, you can do all the talking you want, but it's just about the guy that shows up in the cage.
Yeah. Do you ever get a sense in a situation like that a guy is trying to talk himself into it, if you know what I mean? Like, they talk a confident game, but it's like that's what they have to do to kind of build themselves into a fight. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I sensed that a little bit at the press conference as well. I threw some shots at him and tried to get under his skin, and it worked. It worked pretty well, if you ask me. So, but I can definitely see he's trying to psych himself into it, and just like I said, man, I hope it works. Like I said, he says he's the most violent lightweight in the world, so we'll see in a few weeks.
Yeah. You, because you have faced, so many good guys in your career. I mean, like I mentioned, you have a win over Tony Ferguson, Joe Lozon, Edson Barboza, who's the guy, obviously Dustin Poirier. I mean, just a list of the guys you've beaten. Do you feel like when you look at Justin's record and you look at the guys he's fought, without being trying to disrespect him in any way, do you feel like he just hasn't fought the same level of competition that you have fought, coming into a fight like this?
Yeah, and that's obvious. That's what everybody's going to look at. The level of competition. But he's fought guys that have been previous world champs. He's fought guys that have fought all over the world. They just happen to be way past their prime, and not the best they were. But the thing is, I haven't fought Justin Gaethje yet. I fought all these other great guys, but I haven't fought him. So
yeah.
But like I said, you're going to see the same dangerous Michael Johnson that you see every fight. One thing for sure is he hasn't faced an opponent like me. I think that's clear to everybody.
Yeah. One of the things, if there's a criticism of Justin, he's undefeated, so I mean he hasn't faced, he hasn't tasted defeat as a pro fighter. But if there's one criticism of him, it's that he does get a little sloppy in his fights. Now he puts on a great show, and I take nothing away from him from that. But when you get a guy like that who can get a little sloppy, a little crazy in those exchanges, he's even said, I'm going to get knocked out at some point in the UFC. I mean, do you look at that and say that that's just like low hanging fruit that you can kind of pick on because you're a pretty precise guy. You're not a sloppy fighter. I would never look at you and say Michael's a sloppy guy. That's not who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about neatness in this game. You can't be sloppy. You can't just go in here and wing punches just for the sake of putting on a good show. You know, that's not going to get you far in this game. He's been in a lot of wars. He gets hit a lot. So, and plus, he's expecting to get knocked out. You know, he might not be expecting to get knocked out this next fight, but in the next 10 fights he does. And guess what? This next fight is within the next 10 fights. So he's already expecting himself to get put to sleep. I don't know if that's a good thought for him. Like I said, you know, I'm going to see my holes in this fight, and you know, I'm just going to be the same guy I was.
Yeah. One of the things that has defined Justin, and again, I give him credit for this, is his toughness. He is a very, very tough guy, but obviously you have a lot of toughness as well, and you're not a guy who has typically taken a lot of damage in your fights, but that toughness has shown through. You showed it in the Nate Diaz fight. You showed it in other fights as well, where, you know, maybe you're not winning the fight, but you are just extremely tough. I mean, do you look at skill plus toughness definitely equals out a win for you in this fight?
Yeah, it definitely does, and yeah, I can't take that much punishment in my fight. You know, I'm not in there to have a 50-50 slugfest and get this face beat up. You know, yeah, anything like that. So the one thing I say about toughness is the only thing it does is just allows you to get beat up longer. And, you know, you saw in my Khabib fight, I got my ass whipped for like 2.5 rounds. You know, that was toughness in my heart right now, not wanting to give up, which is you know, which is great. That's definitely a great skill to have as a fighter, but like I said, it's only going to get you so far. You get tough and put yourself in those bad positions. Fighting the best in the world, you're not going to last that long.
Yeah, I always joke, I say, I think it's great when someone has a great chin in MMA, but to prove you have a great chin, that means you have to get hit a lot. And I don't think anyone really wants to get hit, right? Like that's I guess it's a compliment. It's a compliment, I guess, in a way, but really it just means you take a good punch, and no one really wants to get punched.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't mind getting punched. Like I said, I'm in the sport. I know it's going to happen. So, you know, let's get it out of the way and let's fight. But at the same time, I'm not going in there, hey, come over here and hit me in the chin. Let's put on a good show. Like, no, like I want to put on a beautiful show, a work of art. I want to be in there moving around and people say, like, damn, did you see he just made like he just a complete amateur out there. You know, that's what I'm striving to be.
Yeah, you are not the first. You know, you're not a stranger necessarily to killing hype around somebody. You did it in your main event fight against Dustin Poirier. He had come in off a few big wins in a row, and he told me how much he learned from that loss, like what it did to him and made him become a better fighter. I think that's what every loss should do to a fighter. But when you face it,
still said I was a horrible fighter after that fight. I don't think he learned shit.
but with that said, like you talk about, you know, when you face a guy who does have a lot of hype around him and a lot of promotion, things like that, you are no stranger to kind of putting it into that. I mean, do you feel like that's kind of, you know, what's going to happen in this fight? That there's, you know, there is hype and there's buzz around Justin Gaethje, but, you know, there's also a time for it to come crashing down around him.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll take that MO. You know, I'll take going in there and stopping the hype trains and being that guy to upset everybody. And, he's got all this hype around him, but now I'm going to go shut that up and, you know, have everybody be quiet or rethink their decisions. But like I said, man, it's just another fight. You know, he's a tough guy. He's a tough opponent. I just got to go in there and be on point.
Yeah. What does a win over Justin Gaethje do for you, Michael? Because in a weird way, like you could be fighting a number 6 or 7 guy versus Justin, who is not technically ranked, and, you know, he's coming in from out of the UFC, but again, there is a lot of buzz around. It's kind of that, like I said, with that Marlon Moraes, you know, Rafael Assunção thing, where there's a lot of buzz around him, and it actually did a lot for him because there was so much buzz around him, and it was a big win. What does a win over Justin Gaethje do for you?
It's kind of in the same boat. You know, he's definitely got a lot of hype around him, and he's a champ in a different organization. He's undefeated, so they're throwing him right to the sharks. You know, they're going to see if they can compete with the best in the world. And, you know, I feel like I'm getting tested, you know, like that he thought that I was the guy that he could beat that was at the top of the division. So that's what I'm going into this fight about. But, you know, it's just going ahead and put on a statement. You know, the only thing a win does for me is, you know, it solidifies that I do belong at this top and I am as good as everybody thinks I am. Or at least I think I am.
Yeah. And it's also a good spot to be in because, you know, handing a guy his first loss is always something important, right? I mean, you get to him second, it's one thing. You get to him first, it's a little bit, you know, a little bit higher of a mark, right?
Yeah, that's always a pleasurable experience, taking somebody's virginity away from them. Yeah.
And let's be honest, Michael, being back in a main event. I mean, you've been here before. This isn't your first main event, but it's got to be nice. The UFC has faith in you to put you back in a main event. I mean, I don't care who you're facing. Being in the main event, that's where you want to be. You wanted the spotlight on you. You wanted the cameras on you. And I imagine that's always good, whether it's Justin Gaethje or anybody else out there. You're the main event. That's always got to feel good.
Absolutely, and this is, I think, my second out of third main events, and I even came in my first fight on the finale was a main event as well, so this isn't a spot that I'm not familiar with. I love being in the spot, I love being in the spotlight, and headlining cards, and there's more to come, so trust me on that one.
Yeah, I love it. Well, Michael, buddy, it's always a pleasure to catch up with you, man. Obviously, safe training the rest of the way. I look forward to seeing you out in Vegas in a couple weeks, man, so safe travels out there, and I'll see you in about 2 weeks' time.
All right, perfect. See you then.
All right, talk to you soon.
All right, bye.
Bye.